we are now going to proceed to concluding remarks for this first day of the fourth edition of the Athens Roundtable. And to kick us off, I would like to invite on stage Mrs. Clara Neppel, Director for Europe at IEEE Standards Association, to deliver concluding remarks. Thank you. Clara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nico. So I promise I will not be very long before you can enjoy your drinks. It's a pleasure being here. And yesterday when I arrived in Brussels, I was confronted once again with an ad that you probably all know by now. The metaverse is virtual, but its impact is real. And I thought how relevant it is for our discussions today, because the metaverse is actually one of the possible application scenarios for AI, which is also virtual, but of course the impacts are real for all of us. And we just heard that the question is, what is the impact? So we heard about negative impacts, positive impacts. And I think that the aim of every AI governance is that we assure that the net impact of AI remains positive in order to really advance humanity. And we also heard today that we need metrics, that we need risks, and we have the AI Act, which actually redefined risk back away from, let's say, our traditional understanding as technologists of what risk means, namely safety, security, to risk to human rights. And we also need a new definition of metrics. We also heard that we no longer can only focus on, let's say, technical performance or economic performance, but we also need to include the social and the environmental aspects. And what is also important is, of course, to make this understandable and specific enough for the stakeholders, to understand them, to agree on them, on what we actually want to achieve, how to achieve it, and how to make it verifiable for the whole ecosystem when it is necessary. And one way of doing this is through standards. We heard about it quite a lot. And I think that what we are seeing now, that we are moving away from the only traditional technical standards to what we call socio-technical standards, because we are dealing with these social aspects. We need to bring these technologies together with the stakeholders. And this is what we have been doing for quite some years now in IEEE. You have heard already some of our standards mentioned here. And I think that for instance, when we're all agreeing that transparency is important, then we have to understand what do we mean with transparency, because it can mean completely different things to the different stakeholders. For a consumer, as an expert who has to, let's say, repair a system, as well in the different sectors. So one of the standards is really what Sasha just mentioned, defining different levels of transparency, so that we can all agree of what is important. What is also important is, again, what we heard about the life cycle. So to take into account these measures or the metrics from the beginning. We cannot wait until the model is ready or the system is deployed. We need to take them into account from the beginning at the design phase. That's also one of our standards on value-based design, on how to understand what is important for the stakeholders and how to transform them into concrete system requirements. And lastly, of course, we heard that standards are important, but in some cases we need conformity assessments. And sometimes we need these conformity assessments also to be done by independent bodies. And I think here it's also the challenge is how to get from this general to the more specific. One way of how we solve this problem is to define general criteria of how a system is supposed to behave in a general way on transparency, accountability, and bias, and then being able to also contextualize it for a given use case, which was also mentioned before. And I would like to conclude with what was also mentioned, namely the importance to be agile and to be interoperable. So I really hope that, for the European standardization system, which is very much based right now on digital sovereignty, there is a way to really cooperate with international standards, with all international standards where it makes sense, in order to build up this framework of AI governance which is to assure a net positive impact of AI for the citizens, and also, of course, to provide legal certainty for the providers on the international market. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Clara. We'll drill upon that tomorrow, of course, in the second part of our program. We're now going to hear from Mrs. Gabriela Ramos, UNESCO's Additional Director General for Social and Human Science, to deliver her concluding remarks.
I am delighted to have the opportunity to address the fourth edition of the Athens Roundtable on Artificial Intelligence and the Rule of Law, organized by the Future Society and Elon Tech. I would also like to thank Vice President Eva Kaili for hosting the roundtable at the European Parliament this year. Although artificial intelligence has immense potential to improve the lives and well-being of people, we must recognize that it also poses critical challenges, ethical challenges, such as those regarding gender equality, inclusion, fairness, non-discrimination. But to go back to gender, women are systematically underrepresented in the data used to train AI models, leading to bias prediction, insights, policies, and ultimately exacerbating already severe biases in discrimination in the analog world. Moreover, women make up only 32% of data and AI professionals globally, and this is a source of concerns for UNESCO, which places gender equality at the core of its action. And these issues, among many others, led the 193 member states of UNESCO to adopt the first ever global normative instrument in the field of artificial intelligence in November 2021. This instrument, the Recommendation on the Ethics of Artificial Intelligence, called for principles such as transparency, accountability, responsibility, the rule of law, to ensure that artificial intelligence remains within the control of humans and proposes concrete policy actions and practical tools to address current and future challenges. What the recommendation does is to propose a change in the business model, a business model that is usually characterized by high concentration and by lack of representation, and a business model where we need to look at the governance of data and the policy options that we have to ensure that human rights and human dignities is well represented. The recommendation is also asking UNESCO to develop very important tools to help with implementation of the recommendation by member states. In particular, we are developing a readiness assessment methodology and an ethical impact assessment, assisted by a high-level group of diverse experts. The readiness assessment methodology will help member states in identifying the AI readiness status. Is a diagnostic tool because we are looking at the specific moments in the trajectory of these countries along a continuum of dimensions. It will also suggest the specific actions that countries need to take to deploy AI in a more ethical manner. Complementing this, the ethical impact assessment will be deployed both by states and companies and will facilitate the prediction of consequences and the mitigation of technological risk posed by specific AI systems. And this tool is important because we cannot regulate everything, we cannot codify everything. The fact is that we really need to have some tools that guide and bring more awareness when these technologies are being developed. We are convinced that self-regulation is insufficient. Ethical development of artificial intelligence can only result from an explicit global, multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder, collaborative approach. It is therefore my hope that we seize the opportunity presented by events such as today's to enhance our cooperation, share knowledge, and collectively chart a path towards a more sustainable, empowered, ethical artificial intelligence.
Well, thanks a lot, Gabriela. I know you wanted to be with us today. but yeah, we have a lot on our plates. We are now going to hear from Mr. Brando Benifei, member of the European Parliament and one of the co-rapporteurs of the EU AI Act, to deliver his concluding remarks as well.
First of all, I would like to thank you for this invitation and apologize for not being there with you. Discussing the AI Act is now more crucial than ever, and for that again I thank you for organizing this event. The Commission has rightly chosen to focus on accountability, transparency and risk assessment. This choice allows greater flexibility by allowing certain companies to proceed with a mere self-assessment of their products. In my opinion, in some cases this procedure cannot guarantee the security and trust that people need, and so an assessment of the provider by a third party can provide greater guarantees. This fear stems from the experience of these years of self-certification of European products with the CE mark. It has been too easy to affix this mark, which enjoys the trust of consumers, without appropriate controls being in place. That is why we have foreseen the assessment as mandatory for providers supplying AI to public authorities. On the other hand, knowing very well that this could increase costs for SMEs, we have provided for reduced fees for them when they are obliged to do so. We do not want to block innovation, but neither do we want to cut corners in terms of security of products that end up on the market. At the same time, contrary to other parties and the Council, I do not believe that a special regime for general-purpose AI is the way forward. The Council would like to create a special regime in which the big providers supports the small-medium enterprises by providing some information, but the risk is that the responsibility then passes from the big tech to the small providers. In truth, the cases of the so-called general-purpose AI that can be considered high risk are several, and mere contractual constraints on the user could be a very limited instrument and would leave too many risks unmanaged. So how do we ensure that the AI Act remains relevant in the future and is not to be reformed in a few years? The first thing concerns the definition of AI. We prefer to think of it as a future-proof definition rather than leaving it to the Commission to amend Annex 1 over time. It is an output-oriented definition rather than a technology-oriented one. To qualify as AI, the system should be able to receive machine or human-based data, infer how to achieve a given set of goals using learning, reasoning or modeling, generate outputs in the form of content, predictions, recommendations or decisions, influencing the real or virtual environment it interacts with. Finally, we added that the AI systems can be designed to operate with varying levels of autonomy. Beside the problem of the definition, three other factors are very important. An ethical approach reinforced by a fundamental rights impact assessment with a particular attention to vulnerable individuals, stakeholder engagement and effective enforceability. On all these points, we have worked with ad hoc amendments that will help make AI trustworthy and protect everyone, including by strengthening the role of the Commission and the Board so that no one is left behind. I hope I've given you an overview of some issues that are discussed in Parliament in these weeks. There is still a lot of work to be done, but we are proceeding at full speed. So thank you again and have a good discussion, and I hope I gave you some useful inputs with this message.
Well, thank you, Mr. Benifei. And to close this, we're going to hear from Mr. Jean-Noel Barrot, the French digital minister, wanted to be here with us today, but he's with President Macron, probably at the White House, discussing in the frame of that state visits in the US. Mr. Barrot, the floor is yours.
Dear President of the Hellenic Republic, Madame Katerina Sakellaropoulou, dear Vice President of the European Parliament, Madame Eva Kaili, dear esteemed global colleagues, members of European Parliament, members of the United States Senate, and national ministers, I am really delighted to have the opportunity to be part of the 4th edition of the Athens Roundtable on AI and the Rule of Law organized by the Future Society and Tech. Unfortunately, I could not be with you in person today, but I wanted to thank Vice President Eva Kaili for co-hosting the Roundtable at the European Parliament this year, as well as President Katerina Sakellaropoulou, under whose patronage this Roundtable is organized. I also wanted to thank all the participants for this unique opportunity to share views on AI and the rule of law, as well as sharing with you France's view on trustworthy AI we believe in with President Emmanuel Macron. In a world where AI technologies are more and more present in our daily lives, I can hear, like many, legitimate concerns about transparency of AI systems, explainability of algorithms, or about the citizens' data protection. AI enables a lot of opportunities to improve citizens' lives and the management of businesses and administrations in areas such as medical care, energy management, internal organizations, or public services. However, if we want AI to be a real opportunity for economic competitiveness, it is essential to gain users' trust and to ensure that AI is developed and used in a safe, explainable, and responsible manner, especially when human lives or individual rights infringement are involved. In April 2021, France welcomed the European Commission's legislative initiative to support the development of a trustworthy and competitive AI market in the Union. Let me take a moment to thank Commissioner Thierry Breton for this work. As you probably know, the EU AI Act is still under negotiation, and it is a complex piece of legislation. For the past 18 months, the 27 member states have tried to find the right balance between an adequate protection of citizens' fundamental rights while supporting innovation in Europe. I am very confident that this text will reach a strong consensus at the next European Council on December 6, where I will personally attend on behalf of France on these major issues. During the 6 months presidency in the EU Council, France has also worked hard to ensure clarity for businesses, administration, and citizens to know what they could expect from this regulation. This text also clarifies what our businesses are also capable of doing, while ensuring responsibilities will not prejudice our citizens. But regulation is not the only way France supports the development of a trustworthy AI. In November 2021, France, through the voice of the Minister of Economy, Bruno Le Maire, announced a new phase for the 1822 National AI Strategy, which mobilized 1.5 billion euros in public funding, with a priority given to AI training, embedded AI, trusted AI, energy-efficient AI demonstrators, and the dissemination of AI in small and medium enterprises. In this context, more than 70 million euros were added to an initial investment of 30 million euros as part of a project called The Challenge. We call it Grand Défi in French, consisting in securing, making reliable, and certifying AI-based systems, but also as part of funding for research through the 3IA interdisciplinary institutes. Within this challenge, as we call it, Confiance.ai is a technical project that was launched in January 2021. It was developed by a group of 13 major French industrial and academic partners, and it now involves 40 partners. Confiance.ai aims to create a sovereign, open, interoperable, and sustainable platform of software tools to promote the integration of trustworthy artificial intelligence in critical products and services. Confiance.ai is the largest European industrial project in terms of investment. France has also supported the development of trustworthy AI through its presidency of GPA after the Canadian presidency last year. I wish all the best to the upcoming Japanese presidency to carry on our collective efforts. I would need much more time to describe in details all the projects that we have been developing or supporting financially. However, I hope these few examples will show you how seriously France is taking the issue of trustworthy and responsible AI. This is the mandate the Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne gave me while appointing me in the government. I wish you a productive discussion tomorrow, and I very much look forward to meeting you very soon to further discuss AI. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks you so much, Minister Barrot. This concludes the proceedings for this first day. As you know very well, the Athens Roundtable continues tomorrow, almost exclusively online for the plenary. For those of you who are joining online today, you can use, I think, the same WebEx links or the same WebEx connection procedure. We will resume the plenary at 4 p.m. CET, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I really hope that you will join. We've prepared for you a packed program with a lot of very interesting panels and keynotes and fireside chats to really drill deeper on what we have started to discuss today. Today we have set the stage. Tomorrow we're taking a step back and diving into a lot of questions of measurements and evaluation, what that means for human rights, and a lot more. For those of you who who are here with us today at the Parliament. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been quite warm in the room. It is now time to move to an important part of this, which is social gathering around a nice little cocktail. Our team will guide you to the space where it is hosted. Thank you so very much for your patience.